Now, instead of the paragraph formatting controls right here, let's go ahead and click on character formatting controls. And we have some of the options we've been using throughout this course so far, such as font size, leading, font styling, and the font. Over here, we have what's called kerning and tracking. And tracking is used, for example, let's say we have one word on a line right here, and we want to bring that back up to the line above it. We could select a few lines like this and adjust the tracking right here. Just click down, and it will adjust the spacing between all of the letters that we have selected here. And we did that to -20, and that makes it so shop comes back up onto the line above it. And we just want to make sure it's still readable. There's enough spacing in between so it doesn't look too squished there. So I'm going to undo that just to show you that technique. Now the opposite of that is when we would want to add more space. So for example, if I click this and do plus, say 25, really stretches it out, right? So the most helpful effects here in editorial design are just those subtle effects. You know, -10, -15, +10, +15, slightly adjusting the text so we can fit a word back up with the other words, for example, or the spacing just needs to be a little bit wider or shorter. Now, kerning is the spacing only between two letters. So let's go ahead and click and drag with the type tool here and add a title, Winter Crest. I'm going to press Control A on the PC or Command A on the Mac. And I'm just going to make this, say, go ahead and make it 2 lines. So I'm going to click and drag with this selection tool. And let's bring this down a little bit. And I think this text here is a little bit too close to that page number. So I'm going to click and drag around all of this, bring it up a little bit like that. Press W to preview this, all right. And this leading's a little bit much, and we also need to fill in this space, so we could type more content or adjust it like so. We could have something like this. So with this one, we're gonna have to make it a little bit bigger. So let's try 72, that's too much. It looks like 68 points works well with this. So I'm gonna click and drag the bottom rung there. And let's say in this example, we thought this X is too close to the T. It's just almost touching, right? We'll just click in there so that the cursor is blinking only between those two letters. And up here where it says kerning, we can click down and it will make it smaller. And then we can click up and it'll increase it. So I think +10 gives that a little bit more space. If you click the down arrow, there's optical and metrics. So optical just looks at the shape of each character and tries to fix the spacing if it thinks that there is some inconsistency or the spacing could improve. And the metrics use just the font spacing that's part of the font itself. It's built in. So optical doesn't work with all fonts, but it does work with this one. So I'm just going to click and drag all of it here and go to optical, and you can see it adjusts it. And then I can go to metrics, and it's just using the specific rule for the spacing. So it can help us out. If we think it looks better, we can just go to optical and we can see each one was adjusted. -22, -1, -27. And the optical one takes into consideration what it looks like. So what is the shape of each letter and how does it correspond to the one next to it. For example, this one right here, -35. If we go to metrics and I just go to 0, see it's a little bit farther away. I can change it back to optical. It'll make it -35 on its own. And even if we do use optical, we want to go through there and make sure the spacing all looks right. And while we're here, this title, I think it's a little bit far away from each other. As far as proximity goes, we want related things together. We don't want it so close that it's running into each other or too close, but I think we could adjust the spacing here. So I'm going to turn the guides back on here by pressing W. But I'm going to just click and drag around both of these. And the leading, instead of 81.6, which is the default for this 68-point size, let's go to, let's try 72. We don't want it too close. Something like that I think works. Now up at the top, there are also a couple other options like shearing and skewing text. So it can kind of make it look like it's in motion. Add some lines over here. So if you wanted something that looks like it's moving, it's not really italics though, it's just shearing. So if we wanted italics, we could select it and go to italics. There's also horizontal scale and vertical scale. So that'll just distort the text, to be honest. We don't really want to do that. See, it starts to distort. It doesn't look as professional. And of course, the baseline shift we covered earlier, we don't really need to adjust the baseline shift in any of these letters. Now we can underline elements as well up here, but instead of just clicking, we can also hold Alt on the PC or Option on the Mac and click that, and it brings up underline options. This is also on the control panel. Let me bring this over so you can see. If you click right here, and then underline options are right there. It's the same menu, but the shortcut is just Alt or Option, click the underline. So if we toggle the underline on there, instead of just having a default one, we can have a stylized one. We can click preview to see what it'll look like. And the offset is how close it is to the text that it's paired with. And you can even change the color. So a lot of different options there. I'm going to click OK just to show you what it looks like. All right, so I'm going to undo that, but that's just customizing underline effects, so it can be helpful. Another method we want to add sometimes to editorial designs is a drop cap. So right here, we don't want this indent. So with this cursor just blinking there, I'm going to go to the paragraph formatting controls again, and this first line indent, I'm going to set that to 0. I'm going to press enter. And now we don't have any indent for the very first sentence, the first paragraph. And what we can do while we're in paragraph formatting controls is right here where it says drop cap number of lines and then drop cap one or more characters. If I click up on that, it goes to 1, and then click right here on the first one and go to 2, 3, 4, 5. Part of the design is grabbing attention, leading the reader's eyes through the page. And if we make a drop cap design here, then it kind of grabs our attention from the title, some photos, and then the beginning of the story to start reading it. So the 4 refers to how many lines the drop cap goes down, and then 1 refers to how many letters is included in the drop cap. So if I click that, you can increase it, which it wouldn't work on this going above probably just 1. If we had a wider column or a shorter word, we could have the entire word be a drop cap. But for this, we'll just have the first letter be a drop cap. We can also adjust the kerning on this. So if I click right there and go back to the character formatting controls, and we can make it closer or farther away. But I think the default is fine for this example. So thanks, and I'll see you in the next lesson.